Let's see, one beautiful Sunday morning, the pastor announced to his congregation, "My good people, I have here in my hand 3 sermons. A $100 sermon that lasts 5 minutes, a $50 sermon that lasts 15 minutes, and a $10 sermon that lasts a full hour and a half. Now, we'll take the collection and see which one you choose." Oh, there are so many ways to do fundraising in church. Oh. Well, how many of you have heard the saying, "You reap what you sow"? Well, most everybody knows that. It's in Galatians, actually, chapter 6, verse 7. "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap." Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Isn't that an interesting one? It's true that under the spiritual law of compensation, the law of giving and receiving, what you give out will come back to you. As you give, we hear, so shall you receive. This is an unalterable spiritual law that affects everyone, and it impacts every area of your life. But there's one thing that this spiritual law doesn't tell us, and I'm going to let you know what that is in a few moments. Marty was quizzing me yesterday. We had lunch, and he was saying, "What is it?" I said, "You have to wait till tomorrow to hear what it is." So let's take a minute to look at we reap what we sow. This is good news. You reap what you sow, more often more than you sow, and generally later than you sow. But there's still one thing in that formula that's missing. So let's break that down. We reap what we sow. This is good news for us when we sow good thoughts, and frightening, terribly frightening when we're living in negativity because we're manufacturing and creating our lives. We reap more than we sow, and we get this idea from the example of when farmers plant seed. They expect to harvest a great deal more than they plant. A single seed can sprout and yield dozens, if not hundreds, of seeds, and the same is true for us. The seed thoughts that we plant, the actions, the actions, the thoughts, the decisions that we make can reap a much bigger crop than what we initially send out. Haven't you made a remark and then gone, "Whoa, I wish I'd never said that," or made a remark and it's just blossomed into so much joy and happiness for your life? We reap later than we sow. Some seeds do not appear to produce an immediate crop, do they? And so then we think because we've planted and we've waited and nothing is showing up, we think there'll never be a harvest. But that's not true either. The crops of the field have an approximation of cultivation time and then a harvest time. We kind of harvest tomatoes at the same time every year. There's a season, there's a growing season and a harvest season that we can approximate. But there's no regular timetable for the harvest of our lives, for the harvest of our thoughts, right? So some of our thoughts reap quickly and others take a longer time. But the season will come, the harvest will come. And by going the second mile, Jesus reminds us that if we give more than is required, we can reap great rewards. He talked about going that second mile when he said, "If someone takes your coat, give them your cloak. If someone requires you to walk a mile, walk 2. Because when you think of that attitude of consciousness, your coat is taken from you, but your cloak is given freely. You're required to walk the mile, but you walk the second mile willingly, voluntarily, and freely. In this example, you're giving in the second mile and giving away your cloak. You're giving because you want to. You're giving in a flow of ease and grace. Your giving isn't being imposed upon you. It's a consciousness of movement that's easy and graceful and free. Spiritually, what giving freely does in your mind and in your body is release antagonistic thought. It it breaks up any opposing thoughts of resistance or reluctance or resentment or victimization. You're in the experience because you want to be in the experience. And you're in the experience with a pure heart and a pure consciousness. And that will draw the bread of heaven that Jesus talks about in the Gospel of John. Because you're giving out of your own purity of consciousness, it releases a high-powered energy that's instantly felt and responded to by people, and it draws your good to you. So, you reap what you sow, often more than what you sow, generally later than what you sow, but what is the one thing that the spiritual law doesn't tell us that we kind of look for in that spiritual law? And it's this: your harvest, the good that you reap, seldom returns to you from the place where you have given it. And now think about this. You can't look for your return to come from you, to come to you from the person or the place where you're giving it. You're just going to give freely, right? If you're looking to receive back from something, you're reversing the flow of spiritual energy, because you're sending something out, and how are you going to pull it back, right? You could be waiting a very long time. You could be wasting a lot of valuable energy, and you could be setting yourself up for disappointment. Spiritual law is in constant operation to bring your own to you. The divine law of compensation is about giving and receiving. But here's the thing. It is a universal spiritual law, but it operates in a closed circulatory system. Think about that. That as you give, so shall you receive. And you will receive, because the circulatory system is closed. But when you send something out to want to jerk it back from here, the universe responds to flow, not force. Everything in the universe moves forward. Your role is to do what's in front of you to do and give where the opportunity presents itself, but you cannot try to fix the avenue of return. Trying to fix the avenue of return will short circuit or shut off your good. So you have to put away, this means in our giving and our receiving, we have to put away ideas like, you owe me, or after all I've done for you, or I can't believe how much I do for my employees, right? I can't believe how much I've given to my family. I can't, where are some of these on here? This idea is, you owe me after all I've done for you. I gave to you, now you give to me. I had you over for dinner, I expect you to invite me back, right? All of that even exchange. There's the law of even exchange. I give to you, you give to me. Neither one of us is profited. Neither person profits. It's the one who does the greater giving. The one who does the greater giving and adds more value to the experience sets in motion rich rewards. It's the only way to describe it. So you want to replace those even exchange thoughts with, I'm going to give and love and share and serve because it's my nature to do so. It feels good to do so. And then you're in that free-flowing energy that will bring results, will keep the circuitry flowing and open. You can't hoard your talents or your gifts. You can't hide them. You can't store them. And you can't put a price on them. And when I say I gave you all of this, so I expect something in return, you're going to price yourself right out of the market. You know, that's not how spiritual law works. You give your talents freely. And when you give from that purity of consciousness, you're expressing your highest, most authentic self. And that produces for you in ways, unimaginable ways you could never imagine. So I've shown you this before. I think I've demonstrated this before. Here's how many people work with the law of compensation when they think about giving and receiving, really. It's like, I'm giving over here. I'm giving, and I'm giving, and I'm giving. Oh, I'm giving to my kids. I'm giving to my employer. I'm giving to my church. I'm serving. I'm volunteering. I'm contributing. I'm giving. Let's just say you're giving at work to a special project. I'm giving to this special project. I love it. I'm showing up early. I'm staying late. I'm working overtime. I'm coming up with creative ideas. It's, and the spiritual law says, as I give, so shall I receive. But it doesn't say where you'll give. Where you give is where you'll receive. And you may be looking for your compensation to come back to you as a raise or a promotion or an attaboy or a plaque or something, a gift certificate, a gift card, some kind of compensation for all this work you've poured into this special project, which is now done, and it's a big success, and your boss has made a tremendous profit, and you're waiting for a thank you. But your good is over here. And it's tapping you on the shoulder, but you can't see it because why? Your attention and your focus and your expectation is right here, but it's here. It's trying to get your attention. It's trying to flow into your life, but you just can't see it. It's over here. You've set it in motion. You've done all that work, and it's been out. It's in the law of circuit. It's in that circuitry, and it's coming right back to you, but you're over here. I know my good is at hand. It says so. The law of giving and receiving, spiritual law of compensation. I know any minute my good's kingdom of heaven is at hand. Jesus said, the good is at hand. It's right here. I know it's coming back to me any minute. But it's over here. You can't see it. Now, Jesus says to us, what does he say about that? He confirms that your good is ready. He says in John chapter 4, verse 35, don't say 4 months and then comes the harvest. Your good is ready now. That line actually says, don't say 4 months and then comes the harvest. Lift up your eyes and see. The fields are white for harvest now. You have to take your attention off of this even exchange idea, to take your consciousness off of that idea and give freely and fully and with commitment and purity in your heart, knowing that you are setting in motion unlimited ways the universe can return your good to you. As you give, so shall you receive. You reap what you sow, but you do not necessarily reap from the place where you sow. And you short-circuit your opportunity if you look for it to come back from the place where you have given it. Your job is to give and serve and love and do what's in front of you to express your authentic self and then allow your good to be multiplied, because it will come back to you with unerring exactness if you don't make it too hard for God. Right? Oh no, just a minute. It's right here. And my good is at hand. The kingdom of heaven is here. Later, a little later in verse 36 and 38, Jesus gives a second point. He says, already the reaper draws his wages and gathers a crop, so that the sower and the reaper may rejoice together. You're paid a wage for this. And you produce a profit and a product for your boss. And you can rejoice together. You have a livelihood and a career and an income, and your employer has a profit. The sower receives wages and creates a harvest for someone else to prosper. But both are prospered. Are you following me? We both succeed over here. Then Jesus says in verse 37 something very interesting. For in this case, the saying, one sows and another reaps, is true. But I sent you to reap that for which you have not labored. What? Others have labored, and you have entered into their labor. So you're giving over here, you're giving over here, you're giving over here, your good is over here. Lift up your eyes and see the fields are already white for the harvest. And you're going to receive this good. You didn't earn it. You didn't work for it. You didn't create it. it's coming to you in the circulatory system of the great universe. So does this person feel like they're expecting a thank you from me? Whoever produced whatever good this is, and it's not necessarily a thing. It could be you're giving and giving and giving here to your employer, and what comes back to you is an abundance of health. Wonderful, harmonious relationships. We don't know what form your good will take, only that it will come to you out of the universal flow of substance and abundance. But you're going to reap in fields where you have not sown. For in this case the saying, one sows and another reaps, is true. I sent you to reap that for which you have not labored. Others have labored, and you have entered into their labor. So if we're all doing our magic in the world, our good and serving and loving and giving, then we're just reaping all that there is. It's kind of like a potluck. You know, when everybody brings their most special, delicious dish, and you put yours down, and then there's all these 30 other dishes of amazing blessing, right? You didn't cook all that food, but you've entered into that labor, and you're receiving from that labor. There's a prevalent idea in the collective consciousness that we earn by the sweat of the brow, that we earn by doing, that we labor and work hard to have our good in our life. But all the goodness of life flows from one source, God. I sent you to reap that for which you have not labored. So one of the points here is not to limit your good, your prosperity, from just one avenue over here. Just thinking of your supply in terms of just your income, your salary. Don't think of it in terms of only your Social Security. You're retired and you're living off your investments, your spousal support. Don't think of it in terms of earning an income or producing a product or developing and flipping real estate. Don't think of it in terms of things at all. You want to work for the joy and the fulfillment of your soul. You want to bake that dish for the potluck because you love to cook that, and every ingredient is blessed as you make it, and you bring it and you put it on the table, and there's a feast that's created. Give where there appears, let's see, what does this say here? Work for the joy and fulfillment of your soul, and give where there appears to be a natural opening, and then trust that God will provide, because God will provide with unerring exactness the love and the purity that you're putting in motion and flowing from your consciousness. We saw this yesterday. 19 million people witnessed when Meghan Markle married Prince Harry. Have you watched any of the biography of Meghan from the time she was a young girl? She's been an advocate for human rights and equality. At age 11, she saw, I think it was an Ivory soap dishwashing commercial where it had all the women, or talked about the women of America washing dishes. And as part of her school assignment to watch that stuff, she wrote a letter to Ivory Snow and asked them if they'd consider changing the wording from women of America washing dishes to people all over America washing dishes. And they changed the wording in the commercial. At 11 years old, this was in her soul to advocate for equality. And then when she got onto Suits and had celebrity status, she gave her celebrity status to a clean water project in Africa, where young girls were walking miles to get water to bring back to their village, and so they couldn't go to school because the trip that it took to bring clean water to their village took most of the day. So this water project brought much cleaner water and brought it closer to home so the young girls could go to school. So this has been in her, and she's been serving and giving and loving in this way for a long time. And she put that out to the universe, and lo and behold, look at all the love that's returned to her. And it's come back to her in the form of deep love and in harmonious relationship, and to be partnered with someone of like consciousness, so together now they can do that world work in an even bigger way. But she didn't say to those little girls in Africa, "Oh, after all I've done for you," you know, she didn't say, "You owe me something." You know, it's just you're giving and loving and serving because it's part of what you should do. Now, not all of us can be a prince or a princess or marry one. I know, women, ladies, that you are married to princes. I know. And I see them here every week. I see them. But I have a friend who trains dogs, and she used to work with me and my dog whenever she came over, mostly work with me, right? The dog knows. The dog gets it in the first minute, and it's up to me to keep the training in place. But she trains dogs. Successful people cut your grass, train your dog, clean your house, bake brownies, watch your kids, drive you to the doctor and sit and wait with you while you're in your appointment, because they use their talents, they use what they have the capacity to do generously and freely. They do things to keep their own flow of good in circulation because they know on some level it activates spiritual law. It activates spiritual law. You reap what you sow, more than you sow, later than you sow, but not necessarily from where you sow. So the exciting truth is that God will bring us success if we don't make it too hard for God, if we don't try to throw the process into reverse. You know, you ever grind the gears of the car because you got it in the wrong gear, right? When you learn to drive a stick shift, you know, you hear that grind. God will bring success and joy and all good things to your life if you don't make it too hard for God. So your homework this week, I invite you to use your talent to put yourself into the flow of goodness, and then be sure to lift up your eyes and see the good that is at hand and ready for you. And God will open the windows of heaven and bring that joy into your life, I'm sure. So God bless you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.